All right, thank you people who showed up for Zoom. We also have a show for you. What we've got here is a distinguished panel of guests, and I think we've balanced this panel very nicely. We're going to talk about building innovative Windows client software. We're going to talk about what does HTML5 mean in a Windows world, what does Windows mean in an HTML5 world. We've balanced it out nicely. I'm Scott Hanselman, and I work for Microsoft. I have been there 2 years, and I will be your moderator. And I'm going to actually start with the other Microsoft guy. Solid.
Yay.
We're outnumbered. Tim Sneath, who's a Senior Director of Platform Evangelism for Windows Client. And then we've got Dave Wolf, who's a VP of Strategy at Synergy. We've got a lot of powerful people. It gets increasingly more powerful as we move over to this side.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Well. Then we've got Scott Stanfield, who's a president.
I think it's Vertigo.
President? Do you think you want to say president?
That's good.
CEO, founder,
Yes.
chief architect?
Not anymore.
Really?
Never.
Okay. President of Vertigo Software. And then my favorite person in the world, Tim Huckabee, the beautiful man.
Thank you very little.
Yes. Who is president of Internology, who is like there's a deep blood feud between these two guys, actually. It's like this is why they get your hand off his knee. This is why I sat them together.
We shared a man cave at the Olympics.
Did you guys, you went to the Olympics
We took our
together?
sons to the Olympics and stayed with Richard Campbell, .NET Rocks.
You guys and Richard Campbell at the Olympics in like one hotel?
And Forte. No, it's his house.
And Stephen Forte.
Yeah.
That's in a room, like a studio apartment?
Man cave.
A man cave.
Xbox.
And you guys were shooting Red Bull. And I mean, apparently everyone who doesn't work for Microsoft is working pretty hard here with this. We drink only natural fruit juices. This is with a little gin.
Yeah.
All right, so old people on the panel.
Ouch.
Speak for yourself.
Dude, Tim's young.
Thank you, Annie. Thank you, Annie.
No, because I'm one of these. No, I'm one of
Who
these.
got you started in your career?
You got me started in my
Thank you.
career. Thank you very much.
Dad, Tim?
And
He's like 14.
Professional Commerce Server 2000, I'm still proud of to this day. And I encourage you to pick it up at the bargain bin at the Michael's Craft Store. Seriously though, old people, Windows 3.1. I was working in Windows 3.1. I can thunk with the best of them.
Nice. Yeah,
I can. I remember through the transition. We should thunk together sometime, right? In a man cave in Canada. How has software development evolved from 3.1, those kind of standard Windows kind of stodgy boxes, when Hello World was 91 lines of code?
So should I start?
Yeah, please.
Me? I have gray hair. Some of you, yeah,
No.
you have gray hair.
Only in the beard.
Remember the Windows GUI spec?
Yes.
Yeah, dude.
You're not old enough for
There was a
Windows
book
GUI.
describing the Windows UI guidelines, and we all adhered to it
19
religiously.
1991? 1990. The
91,
Windows
92,
GUI
yeah.
spec was a document this big. It described things like what an OK button looked like, exactly this size, the capitals, the file was always the left menu, exit was the last choice.
The F was underlined.
Right, all this stuff. There's the difference between now and then.
There's no rules.
We
It's just
have
like,
blown the Windows GUI spec to hell. We have WPF applications with quit buttons that rotate right in the middle of the form. It's just been a long road.
so it's wild. It's the Wild West as far as you're
Not
concerned.
that that's inherently bad. It's just if you have gray hair like me, this building software back then was relatively difficult.
Yeah.
I would argue that it's relatively easy compared to the green screens that we used to build. For those of you who have gray hair out there, Scott, agree, disagree?
I remember my first job right out of college in 1990 was, in college I was working for Next, which is unusual. So I had a mock interface builder, Objective-C, and then I left that I graduated the same week that Windows 3.1 came out, or 3, it was either 3 or 3.1. And at the time, we were using a little programming language called Actor. I don't know if anybody remembers that. It was a good language, but Charles Petzel was our Bible.
Dude,
he's still
I
here.
met Charles Petzold
He's
yesterday.
a rock star. He's a great.
Yeah.
He's here. I don't know if he's in
I've
here.
got a picture with him.
Yeah. Well, so
Not
it was Charles
Photoshop.
Petzold and the .h. We printed out Windows.h. That was it. There was
Yeah.
Windows.h printed out, and everybody had a copy of it with paper clips, and that was it. But I agree with Tim. I mean, that is a big change. Is that the GUI guidelines were written for? I imagine the audience is probably 70% developer focused in this room, just based on
But you guys are describing a Wild West world that was kind of limited. The controls we had available were limited. It was there was a sense of aesthetic in a very kind of stodgy way, and then we went back to like green buttons and purple backgrounds. Dave, are we moving to a new Windows aesthetic?
I think it's getting away from. For the longest time, it was interfaces built by programmers for programmers, right? Button bar at the top. Why do we put everything in a grid? It's in rows and columns in the database. I'll show it to them in rows and columns. Right? I'll sort it by its primary key. I'll put it in a tree view because it's hierarchical. I think we're getting away from experiences built by programmers for programmers to experiences built custom tailored for the people that are going to actually end up using it.
Yeah.
Tim, is there a new sense of aesthetic? I mean, people always said during the Windows XP Vista kind of transition when half the people were running XP and some were running Vista, that they admired OS X and other operating systems because everything looked like that. While on Windows, it was possible to make a Windows app that didn't really look like Windows. I mean, it was running on Windows, but it didn't really look like anything. And then now I'm noticing that people who like 7 and run 7 more and more expect a 7 enabled, like, no jump lists, shareware, delete,
Right.
I want to see stuff light up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think there's two kind of different sort of directions that software is going on Windows, right? There's one kind of application where people just want applications that really just feel natively part of the operating system, and so that means doing things like integrating with operating system features like libraries and jump lists, etc. But the other side is just applications just want to just let their creativity go wild. Often consumer applications, some of the stuff like some of the touch smart PCs and things like that, where people want that natural user experience that Bill was talking about during the keynote. And so Windows, I think, from a programming model, is kind of evolving to enable both kinds of application sort of strategy. There's ample tools and frameworks for people who want to build the most Windows application. If what you want to build is an application that looks like it should have been shipped with Windows itself, that's one sort of half of the Windows world. But if you want to build an application that is just crazy and just completely wild and could be a kiosk or could be an entirely different kind of application, there's also that kind of model. And I think the risk is it becomes a bit like desktop publishing in the early, I guess, sort of late 80s, where everybody was trying everything out and it all became a mess. And that's where I think having great design and the kind of emerging role of content is really becoming key there. That companies like the three represented on stage are all about design first and controls later, as it were.
Well, I think the risk is that it comes out that you have one of those experiences that you look at it. I mean, you guys have visited some site or app and you stare and you're like, I don't even know where to click first.
Right.
Things are flying and spinning and logos. And so I think to me, that's what I really like about Metro, right? Is there's going to be some consistency. You're going to know where buttons are. You're going to know how to go forward or back or wherever you're going to next. But it opens up the door to being rich and immersive and tailored to the person that's using it.
And when you guys described, both of you described applications that were kind of out there and wild, and you said kiosks and TouchSmart, the thing that those applications had in common were full screen. And during the kind of mid 90s to late 90s, we started getting into this what I call the irregular region phase, which is, hey, I'm not square, I'm hip, I'm cool, and that seems to have gone away. That was like it was an attempt to kind of break out of the Chrome, and when you described wacky out there applications in the early 2000s, they were irregular regions. But now they're full screen. It's almost as if people expect an application to take over if it's intending to not look like the operating system. Do you think that's a fair statement, guys on the panel?
I'd say the best full screen application I've seen is the Windows Media Center.
Yeah, Media Center is an example.
That makes sense of really taking
Hulu Desktop, right? These are all applications that take over and they go, forget about the aesthetic of your operating system, think about me right now, the HP TouchSmart
I actually
stuff.
take it one step further. I think what those applications are trying to do is get out of the way to make room for the content that you're trying to view. So both those applications are really good to get you to your end goal. Your end goal is not to manipulate pixels on a screen to get to a task. Your goal is to get to the task and get it done. And if it's for me, it's usually my biggest user experience challenge is like, really, honey, this is the one remote to rule them all, and I'm always wrong. I've got 3 or 4 remotes, and I feel the same way sometimes with software. It's like I've got too many buttons and too much control, and things just get in the way.
Are you seeing that, Dave, and you're working with your client, that it's about the content and people care less about flair?
Well, it's about the content. It's about being able to blink at it, right? So to look and blink and go, okay, I got it. Right? If it's a business app that's trying to tell me some message about my business, I can in a blink figure out what I'm looking at. If it's a media app, I know where I am in that media and I can very quickly make a decision. And I think it's also the balance is pixels are expensive. There's just not enough pixels to put everything and all the information out there for us to blink at it. So there's a lot of moves. You see it, real world things like sliding drawers and other things where we're trying to make more pixels where they don't exist.
So are you saying that that's kind of the renewed focus? Like let me put it this way. Bubble number 1 was about, doing crazy stuff and hoping someone would pay you. And now developers have realized that it's not necessarily about the development, it's actually about the business. So people have realized that to write software is to inherently try to put something out there that's new and innovative and maybe make a little money on it.
Yeah.
And then from a design perspective, before it was showing off what an awesome designer I was, and now it's about kind of fading into the background and making the data in such a way that it's very soluble and it just kind of absorbs into the mind.
I think there was a tendency, once we were permitted to, with early web and Web 2.0, to throw the rule book away. There's a tendency to do applications, like you said, with a spinning quit button in the middle just because you could, or a transparency because you could. I think people were confusing graphic design with information design and usability.
Yeah.
And we as a group need to realize that we are not necessarily here to express ourselves creatively through a funny use of Palatino and other colors. We're here to get out of the way and get somebody's jobs done so they can go home, spend time with their family. And it pains me to see. I mean, if you go to Smashing Magazine, it's actually pretty.
Smashing Magazine is an online design blog,
and they have like the trends every year. Every year they release these are the top 10 to 20 trends in design. And right now the trend is serifed big headline fonts that take up a lot of space on the page. There's trends for a while, like everything was labeled beta. And they spot these trends. It's actually fascinating to see that a lot of what we build has trends to it. And I do think Palatino.
You're saying it's embarrassing that people who notice design trends have nailed you as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, these things come and go. But I think as long as we don't lose sight of what we're trying to do, and that's what you said, we're trying to service a business goal, and it's to make our clients happy. And if you're either here because you're selling your services or you're selling a product, and ultimately we all have. If our customers continue to come back, then I think it's a good thing. Now, I want to add one thing. The goal, what we're talking about is Windows, right? And the client development and the future of that. And I have not seen a great Windows application in a long time. I can mark 2 times recently, which I've seen it. The one was the guts of the Office team had to go forward with the new ribbon concept, a user aspect design.
When you say new Windows application, you're talking about like completely new concept in user interface.
Right.
Like,
so
it's
where's
not just
the
menus
innovation?
and tool buttons?
Right, where's the innovation on Windows? Because we have to look. We started out by saying a lot of us are ex-Windows developers. We've come from that, and we see all the creativity that's happening on the web. Yet we kind of had these guidelines. So where are the lighthouse applications? And the Office team, I think, actually did a very good job for a team that's probably like a cruise ship or an oil tanker with so much momentum. It's hard to change. Number 2, I've been very, very, very impressed with the Zune Windows application.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a big iPod guy. So for me to go from iTunes to the Zune Windows application, and even if you don't have a Zune HD, or if you win the one that's here, if you're interested in seeing what is possible with, I don't know if it's a XAML-based application.
Magic.
It feels like it is.
Seriously though, I mean, go and install the Zune. You don't need to have, like if you want if you have an MP3 player that's not a Zune or not an iPod, but you want a good podcast player, and you're like, what is that player?
And you'll find
Go and get the Zune software. You don't need a Zune to do it. And the design of this thing, talk about the full screen feature.
Well, it's a consistent level of art direction for one thing. So there's definitely a lot of thought put into it. And it also respects the user's real estate. In other words, so if you go full screen, it's a great experience. If you want to keep knocking it down a few notches, all the way down to like something about this big on the window, it reevaluates itself and reevaluates the design.
The taskbar layout.
And it's got full jump lists. Yeah. I think it's probably the best Windows 7 app, if not one of the best apps I've seen in a long time.
I think it's awesome. We keep bringing up design too, and I think that's one of the shifts I'm seeing is we're finally able, people thought of design in the early web as a graphic artist, right?
Right.
And
they're coming from
thinking about it, right? And we're trying to drive, and I think some of the thinking going on with everybody here is driving that designers are more like Thomas Edison than they are an artist, right? It's designing a great idea and a great piece of functionality and something new, much more than being a pixel cowboy, right? And throwing pixels down. And again, Zoom Player is a great example of that, right? Right experience for the right person on the right device. It looks like this when it's blown up full screen. It looks like this on your taskbar. It looks like this on your Zune. It looks like this on your Xbox. In thinking about design being that you're really more of an architect or innovator than you are just an artist.
There's no room for art in the technology we're building. Let's be honest. I mean, there's room for art in our space. It's just not us. It's not what we do. We're getting paid to solve problems, business problems. I mean, unless you're, I don't know. I mean, that's a very good debate.
Is there a dearth of designers that can build software on Windows? I mean, there are lots of designers, but the designers that I know use, Photoshop. They use Paint.net. They use any number of Blend. They use applications that are artsy.
I think interaction designers should be able to design an experience irrespective of.
But see, you just said interaction designers, and this is the thing.
Right.
I can throw a rock and hit a designer. Right, but I haven't seen a legitimate interaction designer in a while.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, it's very interesting because I think, and Scott mentioned, started off his last comment by saying, I haven't seen much innovative Windows software, and then actually proceeded to list a couple of great examples, in terms of Office and Zune. And, I think there are a few, really maybe more examples of great Windows apps than ever before because of the rise of the interaction designer.
Yes.
So I think of things like Seismic Look as another great example of an application.
Paint.net, the new Paint.net beta.
Maybe. I mean, Look for me is a great example because people have been building tens of thousands of Twitter clients out there, and they're all just sort of, list boxes essentially. Yeah. That's really all they are. They're just different list boxes with maybe a text box at the bottom, at the top. And what Look really does is it tries to transform that experience into almost like that media center experience, the kind of notion of channels and being able to browse through emerging trends and changes. And that's where the design piece kind of fits in. It's partly the kind of notion of the interaction, the kind of the ordering, the kind of process and the structure of the information, the visualization, if you like. And partly it's just about making it a beautiful interactive experience that people want to play with. It's that tactile kind of sensory kind of thing that I think is so important.
So what is a developer to do? We have a bunch of people here, some of which are developers, some of which are designers, some may think of themselves as hybrids. But I know that every application that I've tried to design and then had someone like an actual designer look at it, I mean, it was just embarrassing. Even Baby Smash, which was my little game for babies.
I forgot to mention
I had someone. That was one of the great Windows.
That was a great Windows app, yes, and Surface.
Baby Smash on the Surface, yes, thank you. No, but I actually had to get someone to design the circles. I mean, this sounds, cheesy, but I was like, I put it together and it was just circles, and then I had a guy do a gradient, and I tried it, and I said, I'll just do a gradient. Right, because the gradients are like the new irregular region, or they're the new.
Yes, they are. Yeah.
They're probably a trend.
Oh, I hate gradients.
You want to make it better, you make a gradient. So I go and I went gradient. I'm like, this is the best looking application ever. But in fact, I had a designer then do, a partial 1/3 radial gradient of the waning moon heading in a direction, of the sun, and then it was still a gradient, but it was like it popped.
Yeah.
So do we have to go and find these designers? Every time I want to make an application, I'm always having to find somebody to make this thing pop.
Yeah, I think the mistake is thinking, I have a graphic artist, I have a front-end developer, I have a back-end developer. So I outsource some graphic artists, I get the art, and I hand it to a developer. Instead of thinking, I have a product team, and that product team is going to build a product. Right? And I have a designer that's somewhere between artist and information architect and business analyst, right, all together. And I have developers, and they're sitting together and they're one team. I really think, and the web did this, we thought, you get design, you get a comp, the comp gets chopped, it gets into a zip file, you send it to me, and you never talk to that designer again.
But with all due respect, and I want to guess for these guys, you all have companies that lean towards designing great applications, often on Windows, and I'm just a dude. And I'm going to guess that there's a balance of people that are just dudes, and dudes is an inclusive, asexual term. Not everybody has, hey, let me just call Nancy, the UX designer, she's on the 3rd floor.
Yeah.
Right? I think that there's probably, for every design development firm, there's some cowboys out there that need work.
Well, it turns out they don't like to be called at the last minute to do a paint job on a poor piece of work. And that's typically how
I didn't mean to call you that day.
So here's the interesting thing with that is that in the web world, if you think about pure web design, people have had designers involved from the beginning. And it seems like there's been this interesting dichotomy for the last couple of years that, if you're building a website, nobody would dream about just giving a bunch of guys, Visual Interdev, if you remember that, and, or Notepad, and say, just go create me CNN.com. You'd never think about doing it that way. It would be insane to build any kind of customer-facing website without bringing in design right from the beginning. And what we're seeing is gradually now the Windows side is kind of moving to the same place. The other thing, interesting trend, I think, is that the whole space is blurred anyway, because when we talk about a Windows app, you've got to first by say, well, what is a Windows app? Does it have to be built, according to the Charles Petzold patterns and practices to be considered a Windows app? And of course, that's not the case.
Right.
In some ways, a Silverlight app can be a Windows app, right? If you choose to use Silverlight to build an application targeted at Windows, that's great. I'm not saying that Silverlight isn't also a cross-platform platform. It's not saying that that's not a key goal of Silverlight, but a Windows app really is something that runs out of browser that is designed for the operating system that it's running on. And since Windows runs on an awful lot of machines out there, therefore there are lots of Windows apps out there.
Okay, let me sorry, we don't finish. I want to take the conversation in a different direction. Tim, you've been so silent.
Well, it's hard to get a word in edgewise with these guys, just like I predicted.
It's the Red Bull.
I would argue, Scott, that there are plenty of great Windows apps out there. I think your point was that Microsoft is not making.
I'm sorry. I should have said that because I believe they should be.
Let's clarify that Windows to us is the Microsoft Surface. It's a number. It's the phone.
Yep.
It's a number of devices, and there's great stuff. Multi-touch. The Library of Congress app we did for the elections. I would say I didn't appreciate a designer until that.
So what did you build?
I really
what is it that you built?
You saw it on TV during the Barack Obama elections. The Library of Congress app. It's a history of the presidential elections. We used a designer, and I was shocked. I was honestly shocked at how good it was, and it passed the Grandma Huckabee test. That's what I call it. Usability. If Grandma Huckabee can walk up to a piece of software and inherently use it, it's well designed. All right. That's I think the trick.
I think the trick is that both Grandma Huckabee and you need to be able to use it. Because, it's one thing to create an application that's intuitive to a 2-year-old or to a grandmother, but it's also the middle part of the bell curve, right? I mean, at some point, how do you make an application that is both accessible and then once it's finished being accessible, I can get out of the way and do some power type things? And does power always indicate that I want to go tools options? And then see a field of
But this isn't new. Another point, this isn't new. We've been battling usability. I call it usability. You guys may call it design. We've been battling this since the early 90s. When I worked on a product team at Microsoft, we went behind the one-way mirror and we pulled people off the street and we put them in front of software and they tried to use our software.
That's how it's done.
It is the most humbling thing.
Oh, it's embarrassing.
I assume you all do usability
awful.
studies like that.
Can I make 2 book recommendations? And these are both worthy. And they're both written by an author by the name of Steve Krug. Steve Krug? The first is called Don't Make Me Think. And you reminded me of that earlier about just building applications with the blink and being able to suss it out quickly if you are the intended audience. I mean, we're building an application for chemical engineers that have 20 years of experience. That won't pass the Stanfield test or the Huckabee test. So it's got to be so it's got to be special for that. But the other book is called It's Not Rocket Surgery.
It's not rocket surgery?
It's not rocket surgery.
Okay.
Or it's got rocket surgery in the title. And it is about drive-by usability testing. And so like in Microsoft Usability Labs, usability is a dry, exact, statistical science based on human observation. And to do it correctly can be very expensive, and people just don't do it unless you have a big lab. The drive-by usability espoused by the rocket surgery is something I think we could all benefit from, and it's humbling. I have to tell you, how many of you saw the Oscars, was it last Sunday or 2 Sundays ago? We hosted an Oscar party at Vertigo, and I had the brilliant idea, 4 days prior, let's build a voting application, a balloting application. So when the guests came in, they were given a glass of champagne and a token, a little tag token, that you can set down on the surface to vote. Sounds fun, right? So you set your token down.
So you have a thing. You lost me at you have a Surface at your house.
I'm sorry, this is at our office.
Okay.
So we got a couple there. Yeah. So what started as a simple idea from kind of a geeky programmer perspective became very difficult very quickly. because the logistics of thinking about the user. We had people at Vertigo who know how to use Surface, and we said we need 6 volunteers at 2 o'clock, 6 volunteers at 5 o'clock, and we're gonna not gonna give you champagne, but we're gonna give you the tokens. We're gonna have you vote, and they all sat down, and within 60 seconds we stopped the test. It was that much of a disaster.
Did you try giving them champagne first?
Maybe I should have done that, but I said I did say, look, we're not testing your ability to use this. We're testing our ability to create this thing. And within 60 seconds, it's like, oh my gosh, this is bad. I didn't want to so taint their experience. It's like, just stop. We'll go finish it later.
So what was the wrong? What was the essence of what was wrong? I mean, usability testing is based on giving a naive individual a task to complete without telling them how to do it.
That's right. Welcome to the Oscar party. As you know, they're going to announce about 25 winners tonight. We'd like you to sit down and cast your vote. There's going to be a prize at the end. Sounds easy. It's very hard to build this kind of application, especially when you have people that have never used Surface. You've got 30 minutes to process 100 people and 24 votes, and the Surface has some delays. It was a very humbling experience and very embarrassing.
I think some of it is being brave enough. There's a bunch of knowledge we have that I think guides us in the wrong place. Phrases like "don't throw out the baby with the bathwater," right? Do it right or don't do it at all. Good design is good iteration. Be brave. Try it, throw it out. Try it, throw it out. Try it, throw it out, right? Your odds of figuring it out the first time with no input and no guidance that you're going to have this epiphany and have figured out how to do it perfectly
that's my problem. I can't
really
delete anything.
low.
Do you remember, Scott, the first version we built? One of the first things when we came up with WPF, we worked on some sample applications, and there was one called Family Show, and I'll let Scott tell the story. But we had one version that you guys shipped us.
Well, I'll never forget, we gave Tim 3 ideas: a recipe program, a cocktail, I don't know, something. We had 3 ideas. I forgot what the third was, but the other was a genealogy program to build just some interesting application. And it turns out genealogy, just like anything, you dig deep enough and spend enough time on the internet, you'll find out it's very difficult. And genealogy is very hard. And we spent more time trying to re-envision what genealogy might be like in WPF. And we came up with a mess. Honestly, at one point, I'm looking at guys, this just got out of hand. And we stopped the project. We started over. I called Tim. I said, Tim, I don't do this a lot, but I don't like what we're building. It didn't have the blink test. And partially because we get to a point, like you're saying, you need to have the courage to recycle and throw things away. Bill Buxton wrote the Sketching User Experiences book. It was given out last time at MIX. I highly encourage everyone to read it and convey that to your clients, that it's okay to use pen and paper. Not only is it okay, it's an imperative to use pen and paper because this is cheap. This is very inexpensive to express your ideas quickly on a disposable medium. So, however, once you grab a mouse and go into Illustrator and start snapping chalk lines, you're not going to want to get rid of that file. Because it's a file. We can save it, and it becomes the record.
It becomes a psychic weight. There's emotional baggage that is.
There's another advantage to the sketches is people don't get hung up on colors.
Yes.
And I don't like Verdana and all of that side, right? So like in the Keynote Monday, without being an ad for Sketchflow, it's awesome because being able to pull out. Digitizers are getting pretty cheap, right? You get some great new tablets out with Wacom digitizers in them. Start sketching it out, start breaking it down into pieces and layers, but being able to very quickly sketch it and go, nope, that's not okay. Crinkle it up, throw it away, do it again.
But don't ever let anybody say Sketchflow generates XAML, so we're going to go straight from the sketch into production. Don't. Make it an artifact. Don't ever go back to it. Make it a reference point. And then go do it. I mean, right now, Sketchflow won't support MVVM unless that's coming. So just right off the bat, you're going to have an architecture that might not be suitable. It's fine.
Let me direct this a little bit different. You just talked about tablets are getting really cheap, and I think that's a good segue to start talking about kind of modern applications and some of the hardware that's available that we didn't think about before. Like I used to be the guy with the laptop on my passenger side seat, with the dongle, the USB dongle with the magnet GPS, and I'd run like streets and trips because
Me too. I still do that.
Well, that's just weird. GPS is like $50.
Like in the airplane.
Go to Best Buy. No, but yeah, I was that guy. When a GPS was like a $1,200 investment, I would just have my laptop and and of course on the phone with my steering with my knee. But I survived that, literally. But now the innovations are cheap, right? I mean, I don't know what a webcam costs when they put it in the bezel of a laptop, but let's say it's probably $10, maybe $4. tablets now, you can get a nice tablet for, a couple $100. You can even pick up a touchscreen, multi-touch monitor. I've seen some of the Dells are like, what, $329?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How is that changing things? How are you guys are you developing apps and honestly thinking, Grandma Huckabee may have a touchscreen?
Right. Well, this is the PDC notebook, the free notebook that we got at the PDC.
Free to you.
It's $420.
I paid more.
Multi-touch capable, and
eBay.
It's brilliant. It's an incredible computer. I think
nice.
keep mine away.
because hardware is being commoditized, it gives an incredible opportunity for building innovative software.
How many people went to PDC? Okay, so for those of you who don't, everyone who went to PDC got one of these, and this is a prototype that was created, and they made 2,000 or 3,000 of them. And it's kind of a little bit more than a netbook, but a little bit less than a laptop. But it's got a stylus, it's got a rotating screen, it's got a gyrometer, is that what it's called? It's got a slot inside where you can put in a 3G card.
Yep.
And it's got a built-in 3G modem, it's got Wi-Fi, it's got Bluetooth.
And its
got
battery goes 8 hours.
8-hour battery, it's got a SD, it's called an Acer Aspire 420?
1420p.
1420p. That's what I searched Bing. I googled with Bing to find that on eBay and bought it for more than $400.
So I guess the point is,
And it's got HDMI too. Think about that. That's
a lot of
insane.
power.
all the computers from here on in, whether it be our platform or theirs, are going to have multi-touch, whether you like it or not. It gives an opportunity for us.
So you're
to,
saying you think multi-touch is here?
Oh, it's here.
Sure.
It's in the hardware. Just like 3D is in the
But in
television.
a
We
larger-
just don't have content for 3D yet. All the TVs now are shipping 3D capable. DLP is inherently 3D capable. We're doing some pretty wild stuff in 3D. So ESPN will be out the chute in 6 months with 3D content. It's going to cost a fortune.
I was playing. I didn't even know my video card was 3D capable. I built up a new Windows 7 machine. I got this NVIDIA card, and I downloaded Batman: Arkham Asylum, and it came with 3D glasses. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So I was playing Batman in 3D. I had no idea that was even supported.
I think the opportunity for all the devs and designers out here is to start thinking about devices like that.
That's
right?
my question.
And getting away from all the custom. So I meet a guy, I go to an event the other day, a couple months ago, and I meet a guy. He has a Kindle, he has a Nook, he has the Sony player, he has an iPhone, and I'm looking around and going, and you have a PC, right? You can take a device like that is an awesome tablet-based e-reader. Right?
Yeah,
so
I have
I
Kindle for PC on mine.
Yeah, and you'll hear the distribution numbers. What's iPhone? 60 million iPhones or something. 1.5 billion PCs. Night and day. So I think for you guys, the opportunity is to say, can we take a device like that at $400 and make it an incredible e-reader? Right? Can we take it and hook it up to all other kinds of wacky devices? Right? We did a prototype that Engadget picked up yesterday. A Surface talking to an e-reader. It's a PC tablet. It's a $400 tablet like that. And I think that's what the cheaper hardware is opening up, is letting the PC become those kind of customized devices.
It's amazing that like a Kindle or an iPad or any of these other devices could be $400, but then a multi-function thing like this.
That's what I'm saying. So you can get this fully featured PC with HDMI out and a real discrete video card and everything else. Or I can buy a $250 Kindle in black and white that's not backlit, so I can't read a book in bed.
I still love my Kindle, and I'll chase it all over the world. I love my Kindle. I lost my Kindle in Germany. I was on phone. I Twittered United Airlines, and they found it for me.
Wow.
Yeah, I did. Seriously, don't lose your Kindle. So are you saying that it's just about touch? What about things like sensors and GPSs? More of these things are having GPSs built in. Are you counting on those when you design an application?
Totally.
And
you're getting the combined location with presence with, hey, this is how my e-reader looks when I'm reading it this way. This is how my e-reader looks while I'm walking. I know I'm walking. The accelerometer is telling me I'm walking and I'm moving. I want to display and look at that in a different way. I think there's all these innovations we can use because of the sensors and positions. So if you're reading a book laying in bed, you might design that experience to look one way. And if you're walking and moving, you might want that experience looking completely different. Right?
I don't think I would care.
Open that
That sounds like a good idea. I would want a camera here to show me a picture of what was at my feet. So I was... That sounds like a good way to break a pretty good piece of hardware.
You should hang out with the people that stop at the bottom of escalators and pull their phone out.
I think I resemble that remark.
I think it's going to take a lot longer for these sensors and these concepts to make their way into mainstream software. I think us here, we know how to get to it. I think it's going to be a while.
Why? This is the thing.
We had, Sam and I had the pleasure of being in a small meeting with Bill Buxton yesterday for about an hour and a half, and it was stunning.
It was amazing.
Amazing. And he told us, he said, look at the mouse. The mouse has been around since 1965. And it's now ubiquitous, but it was around for a long time before.
I think this mouse has been around since
that one was
1965.
By the way, if you ever need a PS2 mice, TSG, that has the last set of PS2 mice for switching.
With a ball.
But then he showed,
has a ball.
I don't know, I didn't see his keynote yesterday, but did he talk about the watches? He didn't?
No.
Okay, so he brought out a watch when we were talking. It was a Casio watch, and it had a calculator, or it had a display on it that could, but with no buttons.
It wasn't the old school calculator watch? 'Cause
No, he had that one as well.
I had a club in school. We were kind of nerds. We all had the digital.
Oh yeah, and someone had the games on. No, this was a very straightforward face with an analog. It had an analog dial and a digital readout at the top. And he said, "Watch this guide." And he did 1, 3.
You're lying.
No, 7 plus 14 equals. I don't know
Where
the
did he get
answers.
this watch?
Well, he showed it to us. He said, so this watch supports what's single touch, but it's doing character and finger recognition. And he asked the group, when do you think this watch shipped?
78.
The answer was the same year that the Macintosh came out, 1984.
No way.
And he said he had been developing multi-touch sensory applications since the mid-70s.
1971.
71. Drum pads, because he was a musician, or
The
is a musician.
pinch gesture that is on the iPhone has become so prevalent. In fact, aren't they suing?
There's a fight about it now.
Yeah,
It's been around since the early 70s.
1971, the pinch
He
gesture.
described an application with a computer doing like so getting an image of a background of someone using their fingers with a threshold algorithm to watch the finger gestures, and he remembers seeing you could draw a line with it like that. So what the point, I think the point he's trying to say is that we have a tendency to not look at our own history. Our own history is very short-lived. And yet these innovations have been around for so long, it takes a long time for it to reach this critical mass, but things are accelerating so quickly.
It's not just the gesture, though. It's finding a use for it. And I think that's what ends up being the delay, right?
I don't know about you. That sounds like the coolest watch ever.
And he said if you find one on eBay...
That like puts the nail in the coffin of all other watches.
Oh, if you find one on eBay, he says they're easily $1,000. Now, he said there is, however, a problem with it. And that looking at it, it's not apparent how you use it. If I just showed it to you, you would never know that this is a touch-capable watch.
Well, and this is an interesting
But
point.
with buttons, you do.
Arguably, the real problem is that I could tap on the Casio button one 5 times faster
Right,
than
but
I
it's
could
ugly.
use it. And that's what I mean by the
ugly.
right use, right? So it's cool that they had single touch, but if it took 3 times longer to
Right,
do
so
the
you
math,
have- so the
what's the
Casio-
point?
the
And
Casio-
nobody clicks on it because they go, what's the point?
The Casio calculator watch was completely ugly, nerdy, and very, very functional.
Yep.
And his watch is probably attractive and completely inscrutable.
For the 80s,
I
yeah.
remember when we switched over from Program Manager. Was that what it was called? Program Manager. We remember Program Manager in Windows 3.1.
Yeah.
And they switched over to the Start button, and everyone was like, "Start? What is this?" And I said, "Well, why did you do that?" And they said that a monkey would never double click.
Yeah.
Because the act of double clicking itself is not discoverable. Because it has to be click, click. It's not click and then hang out for a while and then click. And it's not click, click, click. It's click, click. And a monkey can't do that. But a monkey can click the start button.
And yet, good operating or good application design has layers. I often think of like Disney movies. Everybody likes to watch a Disney movie. I can take my kids to watch Cars or The Lion King or something like that, and they love it, and I love it. And it's kind of operating at different levels. They just enjoy fluffy lions bouncing around, and I enjoy the kind of the broader metaphysical themes that it kind of pulls out.
And Elton John.
You don't
Or
like
something
fluffy
that.
lions?
Well, who doesn't love fluffy lions? I mean, there's something there for everybody. But one of the interesting things about, I think, great application design is layers. One of the other interesting things about the phone, the Metro UI, the on-screen keyboard that you've seen a bit of during the keynotes. If you want to do a capital letter, you can hit like the shift button and then go type with capital letters, or you can just put your finger on the letter A and flick up, and that gives you a capital A. And it's that kind of second level of visual affordance that I think is a very, very interesting sort of thing. You want to do backspace? Sure, you can find a little button at the back, or you can just swipe across the whole keyboard, and that's backspace.
See, that's really cool. That's interesting because it feels like in almost all pieces of software, there's the intuitive for the beginner, and then the not discoverable, or not at least immediately discoverable, but easily learned metaphor. So that's a perfect example of that.
We try to do a lot of motivational design, so not just making something easy, right? You hear a lot about user experience. I'm going to reduce friction. I'm going to make it easier. We don't always want things easy, right? If we wanted golf to be easy, there would be a hole, and the ball would go right there.
Well, I think I would just keep the ball in the hole.
Right, but all these people do all this design to make it really hard. Why? Because it's motivational, and I want to finish, and I want to complete it. So what's great about things like that is if I use that keyboard and I'm using this phone, this phone's pretty cool, it's pretty cool. Oh my God, I can flick up and get a capital? Yeah, and all of a sudden you're taking this intense pleasure
and then
every
you unlock
time
an
you type a
Xbox
capital
achievement,
letter,
right? Your first 10 points used a capital letter.
Right, but it is a little bit of that game theory kind of motivational design thing that's making me want to keep using the product.
That could simply be stemmed from someone observing that why is it 2 keystrokes to capitalize a letter? And that's what people expect, so let's add that, but let's go one step further and make it so it's just one continuous motion.
Well, that's about questions like convention.
And the making it one motion is awesome for the reducing friction, but you might just make it fun. And now people are going to keep using it because they randomly discovered. It's like the game theory around something like Foursquare. When you randomly discover, oh, I got that badge because I checked into 5 airports, it keeps you going, what's the next thing I just might figure out?
Do I really want Easter eggs hidden in my email keyboard? You know, I think
I got to tell you that there's a lot of research that shows there's motivational things that you discover, and you find like, you know, I didn't know if I do double tap here on an iPhone, it'll fly all the way to the top, right? And then you use it all the time, and there's no documentation tells you how to do that. That act of discovery becomes motivational, and you want to keep using the software. If you're selling a commercial software product, what do you want? You want people to keep using it.
But it sounds like, I mean, there's effort that's gone into designing that, and if it's not discoverable, then what's the business value besides providing amusement for your users?
It's discoverable. It's discoverable later on, and the business value is that the user keeps using and exploring the product more than they would if they learned everything about it by reading the book.
Well, for me, it's just the layers thing again, right? You know, there's the simple thing that anybody can pick up and use, but that doesn't mean that you dumb down the whole UI, and I think that, for me, is the key thing here. Just because nobody thinks to double-click doesn't mean you shouldn't support more advanced features. Again, Windows is the same, you know, you want to copy
what I want to know is,
shift-click.
when I insert a USB thumb drive into Windows, to eject it, I have, follow this, okay?
You eject them?
Well, yeah, maybe I shouldn't.
Dude, when the light stops blinking, yank it.
But think about it. You have to click on the little arrow that's pointing to the left that's hiding the icon for the new device notification. So you left click there, it pops out. Then you right click. Let me finish. Then you right click. So now we're at 2. You right click on that little new device notification, and then it pops up a menu that you have to vertically go up, and then you left click. So you've gone left, right, left.
Go into My Computer, right click, eject.
On the Mac, it's the same.
Dude.
It's like the way you eject the CD,
right click,
the way
eject.
you eject the device. Where's the right click though? It's hidden.
It's in My Computer.
But My Computer, manage properties My Computer? If you click on My
Computer.
Start
My Computer.
No.
Or desktop My
Left
Computer.
click Start, right click My Computer.
Window E.
Properties. There's too many. It's too many. I do know Windows E. Well, Windows E is one of those little discovery things. That's been around for a long time.
So
that's a good
Window L to lock.
Window E even works on Mac. Here we go.
Welcome to Shortcut Keys with Windows. I really like Shift Window D. It's really on desktop. I like that. All right, let's talk about this 3 screens in a cloud thing. Suddenly, I woke up, and it wasn't just PCs. There was an Xbox, and now there's a phone. And it felt like, I mean, this has been a long time coming, but there's also a sense of like it's just kind of happened. And I was talking to this guy yesterday who works in Surface, and I said that, and I, for one, welcome our Microsoft overlords, that I would be sitting in my house watching Netflix on my Xbox, and I've got my Windows phone, the wife's going in Netflix, and she's adding stuff to the queue. Then we see a picture of a dude on the screen who looks like me. Maybe he's in like 24, he's like a Russian gangster, and he's getting an axe to the chest. And then I use Natal, and I kind of go like this, and I bring him down onto my Surface coffee table, and I click, and I say, IMDb, who is that guy? And then it pops up, and I was just like, that would be awesome. Tell me that would not be awesome. That would be like, that would be
Then
my
you get into
own,
jet
that would be my
powered car and
only
you fly
use
off
case.
into
That would be
the
my only use case for all of that technology. Like, the sum total of 30 years of software innovations. Like, who is that dude on 24?
Right.
I think for
Discuss.
the next... Yeah. Discuss
Reaction.
24? I have 18 minutes. Now, I think that there's going to be a big push of all of these connected experiences is bringing these things together. I alluded to that thing on Engadget, which was taking a tablet PC, laying it on a surface, taking a magazine and making it a single surface now, dragging the magazine into the surface, into the tablet, and picking it up and having it on my tablet. I think we're going to have a lot more of these devices that can interact and touch.
Like a physical magazine?
No, so you can actually check. It's
No, that would be cool. You're
so
like at
it
your
is.
doctor's office, and you have a magazine. You know, you're reading like highlights or something, and really, really old episode. You know, issue,
You
and
feel
you put it
the
down on the
doctor's
surface,
office
and you put your
magazine.
phone down, and you, I don't know, you shove the magazine underneath the thing, and then and now I've got a digital version of the magazine.
It's realistic.
But why not just...
But it'd be a cool scenario.
Do we have to make everything... Can't it just be a magazine and a piece of paper?
No,
Do we have to make every permutation?
talking about
of
innovation,
peanut
not
butter
dead
and
trees.
chocolate and honey I mean, it's like we're mixing. At a certain point,
But
I'm just getting
in all
fatigued.
seriousness, though, are you saying then you reject the 3 screens concept because you just want dead trees?
I think it's going to be more than 3 screens. What I want is a screen to be everywhere. I want screens. I mean, look at the gear we have to have here. These 2 screens, these projectors are $20,000. I want to see. I mean, you guys have seen like the little Nikon.
You need
camera
to
that has
get
some
your here, I'm gonna
OLED
come over here.
projector.
I'm going to hold this mic right up
What I
next to
want
you.
is a permit. Ooh, wow! Check out that phase response. That's much better.
Oh yeah.
You can get it right
Oh,
here.
yeah,
Sword.
yeah, right there.
That's good.
All right, I'm gonna grab
What I'm saying is, I don't think 3 screens is enough. I'm going to get to this. Probably looks extremely geeky. These guys hate us, by the way. The whole time I'm like,
Oh yeah, I know.
fidgeting with
This
my-
guy, we're not talking anymore. The sound guy and I were like,
I think they left. I forgot where I was going with this. Oh
where
yeah,
were you going?
A lot of our battery power and a lot of the bulk of our devices is keyboard and screen. You get rid of the keyboard for natural user interface, and if we can put the screens in an ambient sense, I don't know what the answer is, but if the screens could just be out there, better battery life, smaller devices, more portability, ubiquitous social.
but we can do these things right now. There's the will, right? I mean, we've got all the technology. It's just a matter of doing it. I mean, I would love to go and like I have a Windows kitchen PC, right? And it also coincidentally is this.
Yeah.
Right, and it's sitting on my kitchen, right, and it has some grease stains on it.
Yeah.
But what I really wish I could have is a short throw projector underneath
Yeah.
my cabinetry to go computer, right, recipe.
Speaking, if you go to the Hard Rock Cafe down here on the Strip, they spent a lot of money on installations of these short throw projectors, and they're stunning. A projector that's maybe only this far back from the surface is able to get a very large square image, and I think when you add interactivity to that.
Yeah. I think the thing we got to be careful of is to not go back to the early web to say there's a single interface for everything.
Yeah.
There'll be this web interface or there'll be this one interface because there'll be one screen and I don't want to. I think you really got to continue to focus on the right experience for the right person on the right device.
Do you think that the Windows Phone, which doesn't look like anything I've seen yet, and then Xbox, the new generation dashboard, the one that shipped last March, doesn't look like either the phone or Windows, but they all kind of look the same. I mean, in the sense of when you saw the Netflix integration in Windows Phone, you went into Zune, it felt familiar. It had some design things that tied into the Zune section of the Xbox that you'd gone into, or the Zune application. So they're each distinct, but they also have elements of
You want them to be
togetherness.
comfortable. You want to be like an old friend, right?
Well, that might actually be on purpose. I mean, is it maybe the Microsoft?
Tell
Is it
him.
the same people that's designing these?
Just tell them to shut up.
You tell them to shut up.
You could just poke me. I
tell
think
me.
it might be the same people.
I got to
Assert
tell you,
yourself.
I'm a little worried
Uh-oh.
because we have hardware coming at a commodity price. The software and the plumbing, the tools are fantastic, but I still can't make a telephone call on my iPhone. I can't get an internet. I can't get a wireless signal here in this hotel because we're all on the same
Isn't
network.
that's just an issue of scale? If you were in the desert, you'd have like 5 bars.
I think we are innovating, on the client side, so to speak, and our infrastructure is a mess.
When I was a boy.
TCP/IP is a broken protocol. We're stuck with it. I mean,
Are you
we
really going to have me end this thing on TCP as a broken?
We used to have beautiful
TCP,
binary protocols when
fragmented
I
packets.
started in this industry, and now
Shake your fist. Shake your tiny
I
fist.
can't make a telephone call on my phone
All right,
because
listen,
the provider for
let's-
this telephone is weak.
Let us end on that.
Are we recording this?
We are, in fact.
Can we edit that?
Everything but the part where you just insulted the world's largest communication company was really
awesome.
right on. I felt that, and a little cherry on top, and I appreciate that, Tim.
Okay.
Let's do this. Let's take 10 minutes and let's do audience questions. You can just line up by these two things here, and then at the end of the audience questions, we will do the raffle. Sir, who's checking his watch because he wants a Zune, we will raffle off 5 Zunes, and we have the raffle. Is that the raffle stuff? If you have not got a raffle ticket, this gentleman here, wave. No,
you wave.
see, you need to make sure these guys in the gray shirts, they have your raffle tickets. If you haven't already signed up, now if you don't take 2, because I'll know. But if you came in late and you didn't get a ticket, make sure that you get that, because I'm going to do a raffle. Okay? All right. Audience participation, sir.
Yeah, it seems like that most of the really true innovation these days came about as a result of enforced constraint. If you look at, these devices like iPhones and Zunes and all that stuff, you have all of these constraints that you don't have with PCs. A PC is like this ginormous Swiss Army knife that you can do anything to, and you have 10,000 tools to do it. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the web and a browser, you have this very constrained environment. And I think you've seen a lot of innovation in UI design and stuff because you have this enforced constraint. And I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts on that?
That's a very interesting observation. I think
point.
both the iPhone has some UI constraints, not constraints like shackles. They're more like guardrails. And given enough, we have a 12-tone scale music, and we can create some very interesting things with just those set of frequencies. We can do the same thing with the appropriate constraints. Same thing for Windows Phone. There are some beautiful design guideline documents that when you see the design system that they're putting in front of you, they become less like constraints and they really free you up to not worry about, okay, now what should a context menu look like? So that's on page 34. But it's not so prescriptive that you don't have some freedom. It's just some of that just plumbing for the interaction design is somebody's already thought that through. People like Joe Belfiore. And so I think it can be a good thing.
I think it's about being familiar, right? Sorry.
So I'm just saying to the guys in the panel, try to keep your questions to like 30 seconds to a minute so we can make sure we move through a couple of the questions.
That was for me.
It's about being familiar and being an old friend, but not talking to a robot. Nobody wants a friend who's a robot, right? So it's having some flaws and some flaws being okay.
I would like a robot friend.
As long as the robot's really good looking.
Scott's actually an animatronic.
It's a lot like the binary load lifters that you...
Thanks.
Oh yeah, let's do that. Let's switch back and forth. Sir.
The statement was made that there's no room for art and technology, and then kind of segued into I hate gradients. And I would ask the question, do you think the reason we have so much copying and repetition of these simple UI devices is because there's not enough art, because one artist made a gradient, it looked good, and we didn't have another artist to make another one, so we just copy the gradients?
I think it's a tool that's been misapplied, just like typography. Look at the dearth of typography support we have in our world of Silverlight, okay? We get one set of leading, one set of kerning, 5 fonts, and they all look poor. Gradients, when are misused by especially developers, me including, you'll use one stop, and it'll be blue to green, some kind of garish thing. When done correctly, you get when Apple came out with those glow buttons and it had that nice gradient, all of a sudden, it was very innovative and very beautiful, and it added a lot of affordance, but then it was overdone and misapplied. But that's not art, okay?
Yeah, I think that's what I said.
That's a difference. That's graphic design for communicating an intent and a principle. Let's leave art for fine art to something else.
I don't understand how you're saying art then, because like when I see the Windows Phone with the default kind of Metro thing, I go, that's graphic design. And then they put like a background on it. They take one of my photographs and they make it a wallpaper and they make it pan. And I go, art.
Right.
Yeah, I think
cinematography. No.
Tim Brown will talk about this, and he'll use Brunel as the example, but I like thinking of Edison. When we think designer, I think so many people immediately go graphic artist. And not designer in the way Thomas Edison was a designer, right? And really designing and creating something new. The abuse comes when it's only art.
Then you have Emigre magazine, speaking of typography, which was fun, and that was a movement, but not the same. That's my 30 seconds. I'll shut up.
Welcome to the Scott Stanfield Show. Sir.
Hi, I did something a little crazy last year and started a consumer software application company. And I get the feedback that the web is the future and consumer software is on decline, which I know since the 90s it has been in dramatic decline. I'm wondering, do you see a future? What do you look in 2010? Is there a change coming, or is it just going to be one day there's no more installed desktop applications?
I'm going to
That's like a whole other panel, dude.
Yeah, we need beer for that.
That's a great question.
So I think I'd say there that the interesting thing is that the people have talked about this for the longest time as, or at least the last 5 years, as are you building a Windows app or you're building a web app? And there's been this kind of almost like this kind of Chinese wall between the two, as if it's a fork in the road and there's only one choice you can make. That distinction is long gone, right? And I hope that nobody kind of is confused about what Dean and Stephen did at the keynotes the other day. What they're really saying is the web is Windows, at least from a Microsoft perspective. And I mean that in the most positive kind of way, not in a kind of we're going to embrace, extend, extinguish kind of way. When I think about Internet Explorer and what we're doing, what we're recognizing is that the platform is increasingly an HTML-based platform in that space. But if it's going to be HTML for that set of usage scenarios, then we better make sure that the full power of the operating system is available to those scenarios. If I'm going to do rich graphics and people are going to come out with SVG and Canvas APIs and all the other things that are in there, and we're going to really boost the power of JavaScript and compile it, we'd better make sure that we're not using the PC as just this kind of dumb $100 device when you paid a lot more money for it. We better make sure that the graphics processing is available. One of the terms we've been sort of coining over the last week, as we've described it, is surf on metal or surf on the metal. And I think that's kind of a good analogy here. You can either use the browser as this kind of very, very lightweight sort of thing that really has no power. It's like sort of the kind of it's really the kind of the kind of modem sort of dial-up sort of
VT100.
There you go. Yeah, VT100. This is good. I was trying to think of an American sort of thing. I was thinking of Teletext or Prestel in the UK for those who kind of come from my end of the world. But that's kind of the big distinction there, is that suddenly there's always power available. We better make sure we harness that power. And Silverlight's just the same. If you're building a consumer application, then you can again add that same full power there. Some of the great Silverlight applications are pretty intensive in terms of their computational demands, and that's how it should be. We've got all this power. Let's go ahead and use it. And then the last point I want to say in my remaining 3 seconds is that the concept of what the web is also is transforming, right? The idea that the web must be in a browser is also, I think, just changing a little bit. And that's not just a Microsoft thing. Google and others are also talking about, well, what happens if you take this browser application outside of the browser Chrome? Even Chrome is just the name for just the frame of it. And so again, those boundaries are blurring pretty quickly. So I don't think Windows application development is dead. I don't think web application development is the future. I think it all just becomes the same. And I think the goal here is to build the best platform that enables you to deliver your creative vision and using the full power of the machine that's available to you. That's my goal. That's what I believe Microsoft's vision is. That we're enabling you to take full advantage of your machine whilst doing it in a way that doesn't limit your ability to take that application to other devices, platforms, sizes.
I wish I was actually on this panel, because I have to agree with the statement that was made in the beginning, was that we've forgotten some of the things that we've already done. The very first time that I saw like a feed reader, like a Windows application that read a feed, I was like, oh, we did PointCast again.
Right.
Thank you, 23-year-old.
Yeah.
I mean, we're doing this kind of stuff again, But I think that the most salient point that you made was the surf on the metal idea. VT100 was, I used to joke about that. I used to say that the web browser, just VT100. You go to like your local Toyota machine shop and you go and have them enter in your appointment to get your oil changed, and they're using a Windows PC that's talking to a VT100 AS400 back in the end.
Yeah.
They're doing ANSI. And I said, oh, the browser, it's not, JavaScript, HTML. It's today's VT100. Except now it's multi-core GPU accelerated, and so I think that those days are over. I like that. Surf on the metal. That's cool. Let's do. We're really out of time. I'm sorry to the guys, the folks here. This young lady was standing here. Let's do one last question.
Green and sustainability as it relates to developers and designers, and especially from your Thomas Edison and innovation standpoint.
Sustainability?
One more time.
Did you say it again a little slower?
Green and sustainability as it relates to developers and designers, especially from that innovation. It's like it got some lip service for a while, and then the economy tanked and no one even gave it lip service anymore. But that whole Thomas Edison thing about creating new innovation in the software, what do you guys see for that?
So I think what happened over the last handful of years is people looked at what could they do to optimize what they were doing, right? What can they do to increase productivity? What can they do to milk, water out of a stone? You can only do that for so long. And I think people are realizing everything's is optimized. They've done a lot of optimizations, and the way to really make a leap is with innovation now, right? So they've taken what they've done. People have tightened their purse strings. They've optimized how their factory works. Now the way to make the real leap is to really innovate and do things completely differently than you did it before.
You need a chief design officer.
I'm picking the things here. You guys keep talking. All right, we're going to give away 5 Zooms.
She has a question. We've got it. It's the only other female in the room.
All right, yell it out.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. We have 3. No, we have 3.
Whoa.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. That's not okay.
Okay, 4.
That's not
I was
okay.
half right.
Thank you. I'm going to use that card. All right. So all of you guys started off talking about HTML5, right? And how that would play, what would happen to it, et cetera, et cetera. But you never talked about what you thought about it and how that would interact to the PC, et cetera, all that stuff, right? So I want to hear your thoughts around in the time where the HTML5 is up and coming. What kind of a role do you think that plays alongside the PC and the web and client app and all these other great things? Make sense? You guys are stunned.
HTML5.
No.
It's a tough question.
It's a tough question, and we're actually 2 minutes over.
HTML5.
You think about that question while I call a couple of numbers.
I will.
All right.
Vodka to
I
go
think
with
the
it.
Microsoft people should handle the HTML5.
Raffle number 1001. 1001.
Aww.
I need to see
Get out.
two forms of
Rodney
government.
Guzman from
I need
Internology.
two forms of government-issued ID. I'm just making sure that these fit together. The ripping. Congratulations.
How did HTML5 relate?
I see a Vertigo card in there, too.
That's an hour and a half panel.
Yeah, HTML5. We don't know yet. How about that?
JJJ? What does that mean?
I'm going to punt.
What? Someone should have a thing that says JJJ? You need to
Did you make your own raffle cards?
Rather than writing down people's names, we made our own raffle things.
That's great. Trust but verify.
Oh yeah, that's true. Trust but verify. Some guy just scribbled JJJ on a piece of paper. What's that about?
By the way, while you're waiting for your
based on texture.
While you're waiting for your Windows Phone, you can use this as inspiration for the design.
This
there's
guy
a lot to this.
This guy should get 2 just for this name. Jose Enrique Carcis de Silva.
Wow, fantastic. Jose. Very nice, Scott.
Sure, man.
That's great, huh?
Seriously, dude. Give me another Latino name, please.
Be careful.
Mil 82. 1082.
Very nice.
Hopefully I haven't offended anybody.
Spanish is very good. Did you guys know about the Zune giveaway? Or you just came for us? I'm impressed.
For you guys.
I'm impressed. Okay.
Scott tweeted it. Sit in a room and surf the web and get a Zune? Awesome. On the reliable internet here at the convention center? This is going to be great. All right, here we go. 1059. 1059. All right.
We have a winner.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.